Lucky Boys Podcast.
But you have to know that you're willing to lose this money.
Yeah.
I've come to the realization, if I lose this money, I'm going to be okay. You know?
But come on, if we're talking about taking balls, even sure things are unsure things, right? Jim Carrey said something about his father spent his whole life working a secure job that was supposedly secure until one day that job didn't need him anymore. But that was supposed to be forever. That was supposed to be okay. But the world changes. It's constantly changing. Something that seems like
a sure thing is not.
Is not.
Yeah.
Really Yellow cabs. I remember
Just look at
the Medallion. Back in the day, people were like, yo, the Medallion's the way to move.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody was looking the way.
It was a good investment.
They were looking like, yo, how can I get into a Medallion? Yo, let's chip in and buy a Medallion.
Yeah.
And then look what happened.
I mean, during that time, it was the golden goose.
Yes.
Right?
You wanna start this?
Okay.
We're going into the
whole, we're getting it.
I thought we were just flowing into the conversation. I thought that was the segue.
Yeah.
No, that's not how we work.
We could set it up like that, sort of, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
All right, well, I guess we'll do an official intro. This is Lucky Boys Podcast. Welcome. I'm Will.
I'm Norm, and we have a very special guest here today, Augustine Tang. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Really glad to have you on, Augie. Yeah. I just wanted to introduce you. Sorry to cut you off there, but I just wanted to introduce you to all the listeners coming in. You are a yellow cab driver in New York City, and yellow cabs has been such a big part of New York City for as long as I recall. You see it in movies, magazines, and it's essentially the topic of conversation whenever you're flying in or out of the city, whether you need a ride or not. Pre-pandemic, the revenue was already down for yellow cab drivers.
Absolutely.
It seems like you're on the brink of extinction.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we've been fighting for this for 4 years. Well, I've been fighting for it with them for 4 years. And the biggest thing that I saw when I got into this industry was that I saw how much it affected the owner drivers. So a medallion is basically a permit to allow you to pick up street hails in New York City, all the boroughs, and also at the airports. But what I started seeing is the decrease in fares and revenue, and people had these huge loans because these immigrant drivers were basically like encouraged and coerced into buying the medallion. That these were like lease drivers that were renting from garages. And these brokers would tell them, hey, look, we could get you a loan for $800,000, $900,000, and then we know a bank, and they'll reap benefits, get fees for it. And they ended up getting into this. And before before Uber and the taxi, and for hire vehicles started coming in, they were able to make the payments.
Right. I remember. That was a topic of conversation back in the day where people were looking into investing into medallions, not only just immigrants, but regular folks, so that they could lease out the vehicles and just have their right, because they felt that the New York City yellow cab industry was basically recession proof. And it's something that it's just been a staple of New York City. And when you had industry disruptors come in and just kind of change the whole face of the game, it's, we have this stuff going on now.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned with the loans, and the average loan, I believe that I read it was like $450,000.
$450,000, yeah.
And at one point, I just remember I have a circle of friends that several years ago, and they were talking about chipping in or investing in a medallion. And I remember when they looked into it, and we were having that conversation, it was about $1 million. 1.3 million.
Yeah. And that was in 2013. It was valued at 1.3 million.
I believe it was 2013. Yeah, it was 1.3 at the max. But they were. So the problem with that is that the city.
And what is it worth now?
Right now, you could buy it $70,000.
$70,000.
$70,000 cash.
Wow.
And people are willing to sell it at $70,000 right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's people asking, people buying, but no one's even buying at this
They're not even buying it at 70.
Right now because they're not sure. And for what we've been trying to fight for was that, and trying to shine a light on, was that the city was selling these medallions, inflating the prices purposely, and the city banked $850 million off of these sales.
So you're saying that the city was preying off of the immigrants or these investors,
Right.
inflating the price.
Exactly.
And then now that it's dropped,
Right. Well, it dropped. It was by design because they ended up not only inflating the prices, but they went to undercut the drivers, allowing all these for hire vehicles, because those same government officials that were working for the governor and even for the city went on to work for Uber and Lyft.
no.
Yeah. So it's a huge story that New York Times investigation came out, and it actually won a Pulitzer Prize, highlighting for the fact that these, New York City really, it's really fraud of what they did, because they were selling these medallions, advertising them to predominantly, to anyone, advertising say is a worry-free retirement, and during that time, you could make, I've had friends and colleagues telling me they could make 700 like on a weekend, like on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember when I used to go into cab drivers and they were telling me they make good money on the weekends.
Yeah. It was great because they were able to, if they work hard enough, you got to put in those hours. That's what it is.
So, I mean, it sounds like a big scam. When you're seeing like predatory lending that was happening, right?
Right.
And then all these loans that were like up to $500,000. I'm not sure about the interest rate.
No,
but
exactly. And some of them were even getting into, because these are mostly predominantly north of 90% were immigrants, right? And they were getting industry brokers coming in telling these lease drivers, hey, look, if you have some down payment, like they're talking about their life savings of 100,000, they're dropping. They're like, hey, there's this opportunity, there's this golden opportunity for you to get you to the middle class, And so the biggest problem with that was that they ended up just, predatory lending was huge. And some of them were getting into these interest-only loans where they were never paying off the principal as well, too.
Oh.
And
So their minimum payment only checked the interest, and nothing was coming off the principal.
Exactly. And so and some other people were getting, some other immigrants were getting these high interest rates. So they were paying high interest and barely taking off any other principal.
So, and essentially they'll be in debt forever.
These are the same, I guess like these banks were the same ones that were outlawed in lending for the housing crisis. Because of the housing,
what happened in 2007,
2008,
yeah.
right? So during the housing crisis, they were outlawed because of what they were doing with just giving out loans or whatever, and people were, basically defaulting.
So they found a different industry to kind of
and they were welcomed.
Yeah,
you're talking about welcome with open arms and a red carpet to come in here and lend for the Medallion.
So there was no regulation that came in. Like New York City is high. I mean, from what I hear, New York City taxi business is very highly regulated. Versus when Uber and Lyft came in, the ride-sharing companies, they were kind of free for all at that time, right? When they came in.
So we are highly regulated, but during these transactions, right? They were allowing all these loans to go through and turning a blind eye because the city was making so much money off of it.
Oh, yeah, that's...
And so, but these guys now, and again, same officials went off to work for Uber and Lyft, allow all these cars with unending supply of venture capitalists, and so for us, we're fighting, we're screaming at the city and be like, hey, look, we can't survive. There's no way we could. These guys are 65, 70.
Right.
I have so we do this Zoom call every Friday since the pandemic was happening, and it's in the beginning it was really just to help these owners and drivers just to sign up for unemployment because basically we weren't making any revenue on the streets, and so they. We wanted to make sure we get everybody, and they were joining these Zoom calls, and now it's becoming an every Friday thing, and it becomes like a therapy for all of us because we're talking about our stories, and then we're helping out how we're dealing with these banks and what these banks are doing, and we really became such a family. We have this 80-year-old person who takes care of his sick wife come in every Friday, joining us for 3 hours.
Wow.
Sometimes even like 4 hours, and we're like exhausted.
Is there any debt forgiveness?
See, and that's what we're fighting for, and that's what. So our campaign that we're going through right now is asking for the city to act as a backstop, to guarantee on the loan that bring all the loan principal down to $125,000, 4% interest rate, and it'll be a monthly of $757, and that's livable.
That is.
We think that's livable. Even right now, but who knows with the pandemic and everything. But the city has been basically just either ignoring us. They haven't even felt like they say they were going to do something, but we're just tired of the excuses.
All right, now when we talk about the city, specifically who?
Well, the mayor. The mayor has the authority to do stuff like this.
He does.
Yes, to act as a backstop and say, hey, look, bring all the players to the table and we'll talk about this. But nothing has ever happened. We had even in the council, right, the city council, they all understand what we're going through. We're there every time there's something happening. We're protesting on the streets. We're protesting on the bridges. We're shutting down the bridges.
Can the city council help push the mayor? I mean, I know it acts as a checks and balances.
I mean, I guess they're trying, but nothing has happened. They said that they will try and find a way, and right now, especially, the mayor said to us, saying that
Mayor de
Blasio said to us that it said on the news, saying that once the stimulus is passed, and money is coming into the city, we will highly likely to work something out, but we haven't even got an answer. And this stimulus has been passed already,
right?
And right now it's just we're just sick of waiting, and we there's a lot of people that in New York that you could like tweet to the mayor saying this is a real crisis.
And there's been very little transparency between the city and you guys.
I mean, they just doesn't seem like they haven't really talked to us directly. It's this Tuesday coming up. There's a TLC hearing, and trust me, we're gonna be flooding that hearing. It's all Zoom for now, and so we're gonna flood that hearing, and we're gonna ask them, what are you guys waiting for? We've been asking. We've created this proposal, and it's been vetted by Scott Stringer, the chief financial officer, the comptroller of New York City, and him, and actually it's funny, Letitia James as well too, who is the attorney general for New York State, has basically filed a complaint against New York City.
I heard, there's a lawsuit suing the city for $800 million.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're saying essentially they committed fraud, and with the backing of comptroller. That vetted our proposal, and they said it's the most fiscally sound for the city.
Does it have legs, the lawsuit?
The lawsuit does, but it was right before the pandemic, and then when the pandemic hit, we feel like it's hard to sue a city $810 million when
at this
fiscal
state,
right. Fiscal year, especially when there's so many people being hurt, and I get that. And so we created this proposal that if we bring all the lenders and all the players on the table and say, hey, look, bring down the principal, then we could really make something work and have these guys survive.
So like in the interim, just bring down the interest. So, at the base level, we'll have, the workers, the people who are making the city run, be able to survive. And then we'll come back and figure things out. So I know Scott Stringer, he's running for mayor. Is that something on his platform that you're pushing, or has he pushed that on his
not at
policies?
all. I mean, he wasn't even talking to us about him like, oh, hey, look, I'm running for mayor. Like that wasn't even on the table. I honestly felt like we were working with his office and on Zoom meetings talking to them, and they wanted to see any way we could help. And so we had media come out to City Hall. We had lines and rows of yellow taxis, trying to, get people to see what's going on. And so, Scott Stringer just came out and said, hey, this is, we owe these drivers at least this much.
Absolutely. Has there been anyone else standing up for you guys?
Yeah. AOC. We've driven to the Capitol, Washington, D.C. I'm sorry. We have shut down the bridges. We have went to lobbies of banks. So they see all this, and we're getting a lot of good feedback from it, and positive feedback. And they're rooting for us,
right.
Because just once let the little guys win, and for us what we feel like the city is just waiting and let this thing resolve on its own. But
do you think this is going to be pushed off to the next mayor?
We have no idea, but he could act before he leaves. He could act as, our hero, right. and act as backstop. And it will only cost them $75 million over the course of 20 years.
That's the lowering of the interest rate.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. So what it is that they only have to buy the existing loan. If the loan somehow defaults, right, it would only cost. The only way the city would have to put money in is how they have to put 105% of what the existing loan is, and even then they could sell it off to the second bidder behind them. And from what we gathered is that it will only cost the city $75 million over 20 years, and you're talking about an annual budget of $90 billion. That
right.
The
When
city
you look
has.
at it from a macro point of view, it's a drop in a bucket.
Exactly, and you could really save a workforce.
And you could save a lot of lives because, to my understanding, there's been several suicides that occurred because of this.
Right. One of them is the reason why I got into such a advocating for Medallion owners, and even for myself, because I am one, and I didn't know what my father was going through. He was. I didn't know anything about Yellow Taxi, but he passed 5 years ago, and I decided to take it over and learn the business, and because I also had to take care of his mother, my grandmother, so I moved back in with her, and then all of these things started happening. I met Kenny Chow, and he's in the beginning he was so nice. We would have coffee.
And Kenny Chow's a fellow cab driver.
Right. Kenny Chow's fellow cab driver that owed $700,000, and he felt during that time because
how old was he?
Kenny Chow? Was 56.
56.
When I met him, probably like 53 or something.
Okay. And what can you share the story of Kenny
Chow?
Yeah.
I met him because we were there's a taxi stand on I guess what is that, East Broadway and Essex Street. Yeah. And so we there's a taxi stand there, and we would just take breaks over there. Since it's Chinatown, we'll go grab a cheap coffee, and we would sit there and talk about how's business and stuff like that, and we got to know each other. And for me, being a newbie, I didn't know anything. I didn't even know how to print out receipts. It's I know it sounds.
I could have showed you that as a passenger.
Exactly.
I could have pressed the button.
Yeah. No, but then there's a bunch of buttons. How would you know? So things like that, and any question that I needed, I would ask him, and he would just gladly try to help. And he was hopeful. When I first met him, he was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. The city will help us out. What we need to do is get drivers back, back to the Yellow Taxi." But this was when Uber and Lyft had 50,000-60,000 cars. Now they're flooding 130,000 cars about.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere. And before the pandemic, it was impossible to get from one avenue to another.
Right.
There's no, you just don't know how to get around this, and you can't. Central Business District was gridlocked all day.
Right.
And it was hard. So it was hard for us. And
so when did you start seeing a change in Kenny?
When I bumped into him in Chinatown again. We parked over at Greenwich.
What year?
Oh God, 2016.
2016.
I think so. Yeah, it wasn't much.
3 years into the whole downturn.
Yeah,
when things were starting to come, when reality was really hitting.
Yeah, he was working 16-hour days.
What?
Yeah, he just couldn't. There's things that was happening behind the scenes to him too. He had a huge mortgage payment, and he also had a mortgage payment for his house, but he borrowed money against that, and that's what inflated to buy his house, because he wanted. This is an immigrant guy that felt like he was providing for his family, and when he invested in the when he invested in the Medallion, it's just in all this. Just
He was
went
living the
downhill.
American dream.
He was.
Like,
Yeah.
he thought he was.
So he borrowed against the Medallion's
Yeah.
worth to buy his house.
Yes, exactly. And they were lending out like it was nothing, you know, and that was the huge problem. Obviously, there was just no oversight, and they were just allowing this to happen because people, and they were signing, and they were making these guys sign confessions of judgment. And what that is that they're basically admitting fault before they even default.
Gosh.
So they don't even need to go to court to repossess their homes.
Oh, wow.
They can
Repossess
just do it right away.
their medallion, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, that is some
So
snake.
I could be a little naive about this
Yeah.
whole situation, but why not file for bankruptcy? Doesn't that
can.
clear all debt?
Yes, it does. And it stays on your record for 7 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? But for that, it's just, you know, they're hanging on because this is their only source of income. You're 65, file for
Mm-hmm.
bankruptcy. What are they going to work at?
Right. That, and then think about all the time and money already invested.
Right.
And then you're going to have to start, and if you have a family, they're going to,
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do for work, and where are you going to live?
Yeah.
Right.
It's difficult, man. I see these guys and just, you know, I could see like they're just jaded, you know, on these Zoom calls, and they're just tired. They're angry. They really lost hope. But ever since the pandemic, we organized, and we got, you know, we get as much as 200 people on these Zoom calls, getting to talk to them, and it's therapeutic for me too.
Was that around when Kenny was around, or this is
No,
something
no,
that-
this is just recent.
So
Kenny
this
died
started-
in 2018.
So he died from suicide, or
Yeah. So I'm sorry. That's right. So he ended up committing, throwing himself off of the East Side River, up
The East River?
East River, yeah. And so it was one of those things where I didn't know, right? I saw a picture, but it didn't look like the Kenny that I know. So I remember seeing it on Facebook because I follow this group called New York Taxi Workers Alliance, which is the group that I'm helping out, and they've been unbelievably great. They really, in an industry where, you know, you have a people that's just out for the money and stuff like that. This is not them. You know, they're just real human beings. And
so they posted it on their group,
right
on Kenny,
exactly. Yeah,
and that's how you found out.
I found out that he was missing, and then I followed up on. So I texted him.
Because you didn't see him on a taxi stand anymore.
Yeah, I didn't see him in a taxi stand. And then when I saw that post that he was missing, I texted him. No reply. You know, I'll wait. You know, another day. I'll text him again. Nothing. So, you know, for me in the back of my head, because I wasn't.
And
really,
he usually replies fairly quick.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we would see like, hey, are you in JFK? Are you in LaGuardia? Are you in Chinatown? You know, maybe we could grab a coffee and just talk. And then and so when I followed through with the story, but this is before I knew anybody in the industry. I just worked. You know, it's a very lonely job. You're just driving, and you don't really. It's not easy to make friends. You don't just go up to people, hey, I'm a taxi guy, and we just not like the way that me and Kenny did, you know. And he was just so welcoming and just wanted to help. He was just such a good family man. He has a daughter, and he had a sick wife too. So it was a lot of things, but mainly it was the, you know, financially it was such a burden on him, and what he was once thought was that he was providing for his family became just like it's became a nightmare.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And he believed, I mean, it sounds like he believed in his investment strongly.
He did.
As everyone else did.
Right.
I mean, even people from the outside looking in
Yeah.
thought that the Medallion was a foolproof investment.
Yeah, it was, you know, even me, you know, coming in, and I wouldn't change it for anything. I wouldn't think like, oh, I shouldn't have took over my father's Medallion, because I had a choice, you know, but I wanted to learn, and my father was so proud of owning it. He was just like, you know, he has a piece of New York City. Yeah,
man,
right,
course.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, he's like he loved to be American, but it was just being
does
a
my
New
dad,
Yorker.
yeah.
Being a New Yorker and owning
Yeah.
a piece of New York was
Yeah.
just such an amazing thing to him. But I didn't, in the background, he never talked about the taxi industry. I didn't know anything. I had to get lawyers to get his Medallion. You know, I spent money on that. I had to borrow money from my mom because of how much, I didn't realize how much things were going to cost, you know.
Right.
So it was, my family has been so helpful. my fiance has been just incredible throughout this whole time, and so I'm devoting my time when I can to try to help. And especially with the pandemic, it was so hard for everybody because they didn't know when their income was coming.
Yeah.
They didn't even know how to apply for unemployment. And it was so hard to apply for unemployment because of how many people were unemployed.
Right.
So we were just, people were calling me, and I was just filling it out, and we were trying to figure out what answers to answer what. And, we were helping them out. And, I was literally doing it even for my night guy. I was like, hey, look, don't come out to work, let me fill this out for you. And so he, ever since then, he stopped working. I told him not to come back anytime soon because it's just not worth it. My night guy was 63 years old.
Now, I'm thinking if they are able to sell the medallion for $70,000,
Yeah.
right? Let's just say they're able to sell it. Let's say I'm willing to buy it for $70,000, right? But they still owe $500,000.
See, that's the thing. They were selling their loans. So with that, right now, they're selling medallions or the ones that has been already foreclosed on. So it's either the city owns it or like somebody else owns it.
Wait, so if it's been foreclosed on, does it work like a home loan?
So the bank owns it.
So the bank owns it.
They're willing to release it for $70,000. So we have
so it's like a short sale.
Industry. So we have an industry brokers who broker these deals, and they're like, hey, like we know somebody that's willing to sell it for $70,000. It's either whether somebody already paid it off and they're just like, hey, I just want to rid my hands of this medallion for $70,000. And
the bank will okay that and say, all right, we'll just take the $70,000 and that's it. The rest of the money
these could be individual medallion owners that had it and doesn't owe any money on it and they want to sell. But we know that there's been sales of $70,000 and they've been asking, and then
the rest of the debt goes away.
So this is what happens. So throughout this whole ordeal, banks were selling these loans to each other because they realized that, man, these guys aren't going to be able to pay. And they were selling it at like a fraction of the price. So, but they're still. So my loan was at Melrose Credit Union, and then it went to Midland, right? But they were selling it for you're talking about fractions, like you're talking about percentages,
fractional shares.
Yeah. And so they were buying it, and they were still asking for $550,000. And for me, I was just paying it off because I want to keep it. I still believe in the yellow taxi industry, and I believe that I can be that guy to try to bring it. I guess upgrade the industry, but there is a lot of regulations and things like that. And I've been working with companies called Wave, WAAVE. We've been trying to, tell drivers, hey, look, we gotta balance e-hail and street hail. It's the only way. Right. We need, front-facing pricing, pricing for people to even have like how much it is according to Uber and Lyft, once they have that, because they automatically think that yellow taxis are more expensive, right? Which is because, which for
the most part it is at times, except for during peak hours.
You'll be surprised though. You'll be surprised it's actually not. You'll be surprised how much Uber and Lyft lobbied, try to fed into that narrative. Most of the time it's either just it's comparable. It's not much, but they think that they think that it's so much more expensive.
So from personal use, I know that those ride sharing apps, they actually put a surcharge.
Right.
So if it's a heavy
peak
night,
hours, right?
Not just peak hours. If it's heavy use, I mean, they have all the technology and algorithm. So even if it's not peak and it's like heavy usage, or if it's raining, those surge pricing, it starts to increase. Yeah. But yellow cabs, they don't have surge pricing.
Right.
So technically, based on the situation, it might be less, it costs less. Right. And I've actually used an app that actually hails yellow cabs.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, I have, but it's not efficient. It's not, like a third party type thing.
Yeah, we have a PR problem. That's one thing, and nobody wants to invest in trying to upgrade it. But I'm telling you, we can really make this work. We just have a lot less cars. You're talking about like at its peak it was 130,000 for hired vehicles, as opposed to 13,500. Right. How do you compete with that? Right. But then we're thinking like, hey, look. You guys TLC should be doing something about this. This is ridiculous. Yeah, how is there enough to eat for everybody?
Right.
And so you guys sold us these medallions and they okayed it, and they just basically don't care. You know, you wish that they can.
So the TLC works with the government, or it's part of the city government.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
There's
I've heard that there is a policy in place right now, and it's going through the grapevine to create an app that lists the yellow cab with ride sharing apps.
Right. But then Uber and Lyft and stuff, they're blocking.
Yeah, they're trying to block it.
Of course, you know, what they're trying to do is just that they have dynamic pricing, right? And so, like, if it's Will trying to order an Uber, they know that, oh, he's willing to pay this price, you know. And then if you look on Lyft, and you know, obviously Lyft might be a little less, and you look back on Uber, they at a certain point they kept on trying to fight with each other, you know. And they know that, oh, he's willing to pay, you know, $150 to go to the airport. Then let's put it up that way. And it's hard. How do you compete with like an unending supply of venture capitalists? And they spent $200 million to
just lobbying.
You know, especially like all this is happening, and it's not at the expense of, you know, Uber drivers pay the price too. You know, all these guys they're working for slave wages, and they're just not being considered employees. And so in California, Proposition 22 came out, and they lobbied $200 million to get people to vote for Proposition 22, which is labeling these gig workers as
part of the company.
No,
right?
Independent contractors, not part of the company.
Oh, it's the other way.
The other way.
So that they're not responsible for benefits or anything.
So there's no economic floor for them. They could be like, oh, I don't know how much they make. There's not, you know, they don't have to need a hourly wage. You know, they have to meet a requirement. They don't have to pay for workers' comp. We pay for workers' comp. We pay for, you know, insurance up to yin yang. You know, it's a lot of financial burden on us.
So they want to label them as independent contractors.
Exactly. Yeah. And what's important is that, especially even right now, they don't have the security as like a regular employee. Mm-hmm. But so what happened in California right now is that there are actually a lot of these people that were hiring full-time workers are firing them and calling them hiring independent contractors because they don't have as much security, you know. And it's becoming, and you know, they're going against labor laws,
right?
Which is, you know, and they're trying to do that here in New York as well too. But we're gonna keep on fighting, you know, for these people. Like I don't have anything to do. Like I don't hate on any of the drivers. I feel for them, you know. For me, my focus is Medallion owners, but I get that these drivers need help too, you know.
Do you think eventually that just people in general will not be picking up other people, you know, in cab, like it'll be all, it'll be just robots, AI, self-driving cars.
You know, it's funny.
I'm seeing a lot. I read somewhere that in some cities they're actually demoing it.
Yeah.
You know, it started out, you know, I remember something like Uber and Lyft being in select cities, and then now look what it is now. It's just grown to a behemoth, globally. Yeah. And then I'm seeing the same patterns now. I'm reading these driverless vehicles.
Yeah.
Right.
I personally don't think it's as easy as people think to have, you know, these, you know, driverless cars, especially in New York City, just because of how many people are in the city and how, like, if you have those cars trying to make a turn and they have just one person going at a time, we will never get anywhere. You know, you need that human instinct. I'm not saying that it will never happen. I just think that it's hard because those cars need a hub. And they have to build that hub, and it costs a lot of money and a lot of manpower to have that going. And I just don't think it's as close as where you know, people think it is. But I think in the future, it will come. Yeah,
I think it can possibly happen within the next 5 to 10 years.
I think it's going to be longer. I just don't think it's going to be as easy. You know, but I mean, who knows? You know, these guys have so much money. It's
just exactly, and that's exactly it. There's just, we're not talking millions, we're talking about billions of dollars involved in the whole big picture.
Right.
And when there's that much money involved, it seems that change happens very quickly.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of large corporations that already have this technology. They're just working out the kinks, Because, for example, I mean, let's just say they have a driverless vehicle and it's operating at a productivity or efficiency level at 97, 98%, no accidents, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's not good enough, right? Because think about it, for every 100 vehicles that are out there, 2 or 3 are getting into an accident, right? So they're going to have to try to decrease that to 99 point whatever for it to be acceptable out there in mainstream. And a lot of these vehicles, what I've read, if you just even look at the Tesla vehicles that are self-driving, the report concluded that you're 70% less likely to get in a car accident if you use their autopilot.
Right. Yeah.
So when you're looking, and if you look at it, if they have a bunch of computers that talk to each other, and they can know when the other vehicles, they can anticipate each other, so to speak, because they're communicating with one another, versus humans will all just kind of, we can be tired, like you said, working 14, 16 hours. That's insane.
It's really hard. Yeah. I mean, I get that. But I feel like they still need that human instinct where you know that you could make this turn between 2 passengers, or this, this guy, you could have just people walking on the street and just hesitate, and then they wouldn't know what the other, what the person would do. So I think it's just, I could see it in the future. I just don't think it's as soon.
I mean, they're even incorporating LiDAR technology into a lot of these autopilots. And I've used LiDAR, and it's a very interesting technology. Yeah. It's very interesting how the camera just sees and is able to make decisions and know the distance and the measurements of things. Like, for example, if I put a LiDAR on you, it'll know that you're 5'10". Put it on me, it would have all these measurements laid out. I think it'll happen. I think there's just billions of dollars. I'm worried for these industries that require people to drive, even the trucking industry.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I think Andrew Yang highlighted that.
Right. And
automation that's going to take over.
Right. And he said, he even said, I think 5 to 10 years that it's going to be a real thing where it's going to take over. And you look at a lot of logistics company, transportations, they're investing a lot in that technology as well, even with drones delivering packages and robots. In some cities, robots deliver your boxes.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So I'm saying, whenever you see like these little tests in these markets, it usually goes into the major markets within 5 to 10 years is what I've been seeing. And technology has just been increasing at such a rapid pace that I think it's only the beginning for the truckers, for the cab drivers. And I feel bad because a lot of these people invested so heavily in this industry.
Right. Yeah. No, and this is what I'm hoping is that I'm hoping if I have a Medallion and they start allowing these AI cars that I'm able to purchase one and have it run as my own, but who knows? Yeah. I didn't think
that is some passive income right there.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, you don't have to pay the driver. You just have to buy the vehicle
and upkeep it.
But I was just thinking, like, there's so many things on the road, like bikers. You're talking about e-scooters have been approved as well too. I haven't seen it yet, but
in other boroughs we see the e-scooters a lot.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm sorry. The regular, not the mopeds. I was talking about the e-scooters, like the regular electric ones that
like a razor
scooter thing.
But they have that in the city. Like they have that running around like city bikes.
No, like you ever seen Bird on other
in other states,
right? Yeah, it's something like stuff like that. And Lyft has it too, and Uber has like Lime or something.
Right.
So they approved that, but I don't know when they're gonna start like rolling that.
Man,
out.
I don't know. I wouldn't ride one of those in New York City. That's
they have
potholes.
I mean, they have Revel. I mean, it's not an e-scooter, but
but a few people died.
There's a few people.
But like 2 weeks later, just come on back.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's cool. We forgot about it.
That's the lobby money, man. I mean, like
crazy.
it's crazy to have like a company come in and provide a product, but then it's unsafe. And they're still running.
It's funny because in 2017, Uber and Lyft spent more on lobbying than like Walmart, Amazon, and
and Microsoft.
Makes
combined.
sense.
combined.
It makes sense. Imagine, let's just think about like when they came into the market, there was no slowdown. I mean, they just came in and then pretty much decimated a whole industry.
Yeah.
But then where was the city council people and the mayor saying like, oh, you're destroying lives. Just slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll just limit amount of Uber cars in the city, and then we'll work something out. But that never happened.
It wasn't, and these guys just allowed this to happen. And who paid the price? You know, the drivers did. The ones who invested in the city.
Yep.
And like they not only, a lot of people don't know this, but since 2009, yellow taxis, they collect a fee, a tax of 50 cents, and then now in 2019, another 250 on top of that. They collected over $1 billion for the MTA alone, you know. And you're thinking like, oh, you know, we're basically the tax collectors.
Wow.
And not only that, they invested, like we've been paying that tax for them, collecting that tax for them, but they also raked in $850 million of city for the city of New York.
So you're talking about the subway, the metro here in New York City, that's operating. It should be operating on a surplus.
Yeah, it should be.
you know,
but it's not.
I know.
The stations look the same as it did 10 years ago.
They have to go to other points of transportation and collect fees.
Exactly.
for
we
that.
We have no say. We try to fight against it. I drove my cab up to Albany. You know, us and a good amount of us. Just, you know, we try to fight for issues like that. But then they're just ignoring us. Mm-hmm. It's terrible. And
this is happening across the United States. It's not just a New York City problem.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, you know, in New York State, and for us, there's a lot of people in other cities that aren't even getting what we are getting because they're not getting the holiday payments during the pandemic. So these guys are still paying while not making money on their loans. And, you know, you talk about Boston, Chicago, San Fran and all that. But for us, we've been, you know, we're making some noise, and, you know, we're getting out there on, you know, I'm always saying yes to interviews, you know, New York Times, CNN, whatever it is, you know, I'm trying to do as much as I can to just really shine a light on what's going on. And for me, I didn't think I was going to be this involved. But, you know, my fiance, she pushes me. She's like, hey, do this, you know.
You have to fight back.
Yeah.
I mean, and you have to let your voices be heard. Otherwise, I mean, it's not going to get any better.
Yeah.
Has anything changed since your interview with New York Times or CNN?
Well, we have gotten a lot of I guess positive feedback. We're talking about, we had Congressman Meeks, who's a New York delegate, introduce a bill that says that if we do get the debt forgiveness, like if it's $550,000 and it's shortened down to $125,000, usually people have to pay taxes on that. That works as income. And you're talking about people don't have $125,000 to pay to the government. Right. So he introduced a bill. If this does happen, then we do not have to pay taxes on it. And we have every New York New York congressman delegate have been showing support. They wrote letters to the city saying, hey, we have to help these guys.
So who's the person holding this up? Is it just the mayor?
It's just the mayor, you know,
but he said he was going to do something about it,
yeah,
right?
He said, but he hasn't, you know, I guess he has too much on his plate. You know, I don't know. We'll see on Tuesday. We're going to be at his Gracie's mansion, and we're going to also be on Zoom during that time to talk to the TLC. You know, we're here. I know it sounds stupid that, like, some people think that, we're just, you know, pitchforks and signs and all that. And it's not about that. You know, we've been getting, you know, Bernie Sanders retweeted us about what we were doing when we shut down the Brooklyn Bridge and the 59th Street Bridge. Mm-hmm. That really took off. A lot of people, they were talking about like 3 million people have seen that. And they see what we're doing, like shutting down City Hall, you know, parking all our cars and just leaving it there. You know, Scott Stringer has came out, and we've been screaming this, and a lot of people are agreeing with us, but yet no action has been taken to try to help these immigrant drivers.
It feels like you have to just make the city uncomfortable because
they
do.
make us feel uncomfortable, right?
Yeah,
Like,
because
for the longest time.
if there's no help coming, you have to, you just have to elevate your voice. I mean, even here in Chinatown, they were trying to build a 90-foot jail, and that was stopped because of a lawsuit. It was
90-story.
90 story.
90 foot.
90 foot. Yeah, that would be tall. Yeah, 90 story. Yeah.
90-foot jail would be.
It's illegal. It's illegal.
Is this a jail for ants?
Yeah. So they brought a lawsuit and they stopped it. They stopped the build.
Well, it's been halted.
Halted. Right?
It's been halted for now.
And the city has the right to appeal, of course.
Right. I mean, they've done. The city has done a lot to Chinatown right now. Like I can't even imagine. I heard they don't even offer them the PPP loans. Is that what I?
I believe that has been corrected or being looked at the moment. It was part of what we were talking about prior, but yeah, I mean, we work with several people in Chinatown, and we spoke to them, and a lot of non-for-profits and people involved in the small to medium businesses here. And the reason that they weren't getting or qualifying for these loans because they were basically looking at the zip code you were in, and that's it. And they said, this is a very wealthy zip code. Yeah. And anyone that's from New York City understands that zip codes in New York are split between wealthy and the non-wealthy parts. And Chinatown is a huge representation of that, right? You could have several high-end shops that cost $100,000 to even, that's what the starting price is just for a piece of art. Within that same zip code, you have meals that you can purchase for $3, $5 for lunch. And that's goes the complete opposite. Yeah. And these small to medium businesses along that area that just happens to be in this zip code were left out.
Yeah,
and left behind.
And I saw that. And New York City has the the highest income inequality.
Oh my gosh!
And it's just it's not even. And look, for a city that has a highest income inequality and one of the richest cities, we actually have one of the lowest unemployment rate, meaning that you only get paid $182 before taxes a week from the city, and without the federal money coming in, it'll be hard for these guys to survive. And look, I feel that there's a lot of things that can be corrected, and I see this even in Chinatown. Look, I see people. I mean, like grandma's still collecting cans. I think most of them do it just to do it, not that they need to. But I see that, and it's like it just breaks my heart.
It does. Every time I see a grandma here,
I know.
Number one, like Asians for whatever reason. In Chinatown, I've seen, it's very rare that I see an Asian person beg for money.
Yeah.
Looking for a handout.
But we have,
very rare.
Like, it's weird because I've been seeing more of that in Chinatown.
Looking for a handout now?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It really just breaks my heart,
Yeah. And what breaks my heart is that the 80, 90-year-old grandma with the big humpback slouch, and you can just see that. And they're carrying like these heavy, like they have a heavy stick across them, and with bags of aluminum cans and bottles, and then at the same time they're pushing these carts and they're pushing all these cans and bottles, and it breaks my heart because I'm going, what if that's my mom? What if that's my grandma? What if that's my friend's mom or grandma that I grew up with? Like people that I care so deeply for, and. What happened there? Where are their kids? Where are their, like, we're not supposed, within our community or our village or anywhere that we live, regardless of race, people in our community, we should take care of our elderly. At the very least, we should take care of our elderly. And to see that and see so many people just kind of walk by without giving two shits, like that's just a normal occurrence, that's also painful to watch. People are just walking right by them. And it just, to me, and I get it, it's like, eventually when you're in New York, you just become so jaded with this stuff. And that kind of made me sad to go, I'm jaded from humanity, from something like that. Something that if I watched on a movie, I would feel more than something I would see in real reality.
Yeah.
You know, something that I would see on Instagram. If someone posted this on Instagram or YouTube video, they would go send out hearts and perhaps donate a little bit of something.
Right.
But you see this in real life, you're just, it ain't nothing. You know, that trips me out.
Yeah.
Like, do we have to care only when we're on our phones in front of a screen? You know, there's just something there that's just strange. It's just very strange that people can just walk by another human being that's suffering. And I'm not talking about the whole world, but just New York specifically.
Nah, I get that.
You
And
know?
then people just get into their own, you know, their own heads and just do what they have to go to work. And I think it's partly because of it's how hard they work, and then so they just zone everything out. You know, I think a lot of New Yorkers are just like trying to get things done and whatever, and they can't pay no mind to, which is terrible because, you know, what you see outside is, you know, there's people just begging on the streets, and they're you know, these grandmas are just sitting on the side, and it's cold out.
Right.
You know, I'm like, grandma, go home. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if you're, I mean, I always talk to Nora about this. If your hands work, your feet work, your brain works, and you don't have mental health issues, and you're totally capable, then you should work towards finding a solution, right? If everything works, then you should work to find a solution. I don't know what that is, right? But everyone's fighting to find their own solution in life. And if you are completely functional, then that's different from someone who has mental health issues, right? Someone who's handicapped, someone who has health issues, someone who's very old. I mean, those are completely different things. And during this pandemic, I want to say that I saw the best in humanity, but that's just not true. I've seen so many great things, but we can't ignore the bad things that's occurring too.
Still around, yeah.
Right. We were just talking prior to going live on this podcast. What just happened down the street the other day?
Oh my God.
You know, 5 or 6, 7, 8 people jumped a guy.
12 people.
It was 12 people?
Yeah, that's what they counted it.
I mean, jumped a guy by himself and robbed him, lacerated him in his face and his body. And while they were robbing him, they took his jacket, his clothes, and even stripped him down to his underwear, ripped off his underwear.
It's broad daylight.
In
It's
broad
like,
daylight.
Yeah.
Like, people feel like it's okay to do that. You know, it's crazy.
I mean, I would never hear things like that prior to the pandemic.
Yeah, no, it's true.
You know, and I mean, on all honesty, it looked like a targeted attack based on what we.
It does seem that way after when we were talking about it.
Yeah.
Because it just seemed too organized to happen. But it's so sad. But then you think about it, you're like, oh my God, it's, you know, things are happening, you know, and you see it, and you're just, you know, you're nervous just to go out. You know, hearing things on the train, people getting pushed, people are, you know.
Every other week, it's like on the major news network, I hear about someone getting pushed on the tracks.
Has this always been happening?
No.
And we just don't pay no
I don't know.
mind?
I think the thing
can't
is
be,
this
right?
this has been happening though, you know,
Yeah,
and then it's just been highlighted because the fact that there's no other like type of news to report on except the rising crime, you know.
But if you look at the numbers, they don't lie. Crime rate is up significantly. Year over year, it is up significantly since the pandemic.
Shootings are up.
Right. So it's not just the news trying to bring something and highlight it further. I believe that's not 100% of the case. I think crime is rising significantly. I mean, look at what Augie just said. And he's not alone in this. People are afraid to go out in certain neighborhoods in New York City.
Yep.
People are afraid to go out at certain times by themselves. I mean, I fear for my friends that live in the city.
Yeah.
You know, that when they have to go out, and if they're alone, or my family members, if they're going to be somewhere at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
And you're going to see a group of people that just are feeling some type of way that day, and they bump into someone with mental health issues, or someone's just angry at the whole situation and they have no outlet and they want to take it out on someone that they feel can't fight back.
Yeah.
And that's been happening nonstop. It's like every freaking week I'm hearing something about this.
Yeah, and it's escalating. It doesn't seem like it's like de-escalating at all. And it's scary. And so, thank God my fiance, she works from home, but if she has to go out anywhere, even in the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, hey, look, I'm gonna drive you, and I'm gonna drive you back home. Just tell me when you need me, and you are not taking the journey.
I think that was the major reason why people are leaving New York City. Mm-hmm. It wasn't because of how dense it was and the spread of COVID. You can literally get it anywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to discriminate.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people saw the writing on the wall. Crime rate was significantly up and a lot of people were getting hurt, and probably it was becoming too close for comfort. Mm-hmm. Maybe they knew someone, or they knew someone who were a victim of a crime, or something happened in their zip code, in their neighborhood. And they said, you know what, I'm out. I'm moving back home with my parents over in wherever, and that's not in New York City.
How can you even afford, like if you're unemployed all of a sudden,
how do you afford New York?
How do you afford New York?
But you know what? People just don't pay rent.
Exactly.
People you could get away with not paying rent in New York City for
just moratorium. But you could not pay rent anywhere.
A year or two.
Right? How are we going to fix it?
But New York City laws is just way
tenant friendly.
I mean, you're a landlord.
Yeah.
You tell me.
They're very tenant friendly, but every if you're a landlord, you have to go through a process for eviction. So tenants tend to have more rights than property owners, but there are a lot of scumbag landlords too. So
that's also true.
And that's why those laws are there to protect them.
Right.
But you also get scumbag tenants.
Yeah, people do abuse it. People do abuse it,
who know how to play the system. I could get away with not paying rent for a couple of years.
Yeah. And I could see that, and it's people just try to take it. It's just so many people just try to take advantage of it.
Is that human nature? I feel like it's
I don't know if it's human nature, because I don't really hear stories like that outside of New York. When I leave to and I love New York City, man. Born and raised, bred here, so don't think otherwise what I'm saying. But I'm speaking the truth. As a New Yorker, when I left New York, I couldn't believe how friendly people were. I had strangers coming up to me to say hi, people offering to help me. It was just, I was blown away, specifically when I was down south, right? Yes, I do know that there was a lot of racism down there.
Did you feel that?
And they have
you felt it for sure.
For sure. But I feel here too.
Yeah, that's true. But not as much.
But here is just more masked. Yeah. But I can tell you, I can tell.
Yeah.
When someone,
so it wasn't masked like down in the south.
Here I get like soft racism. It's either extreme, like, well, once in a while I'll get like an extreme type of racism, right? Or I hear someone that where it's happened to, like, oh, you whatever, Asian, especially during COVID, right? Mm-hmm. But before that, or even now, it's very subtle, soft racism, right? You go down south, it's way more in your face. It's just different, right? But I'm speaking to the friendliness of the environment. I just don't see. I see more of that hospitality, that Southern hospitality to speak of. And over here, just the amount of crime that has occurred during the pandemic, during such a shitty situation, to try to point fingers and then just launch an all-out hate attack or take advantage of certain people. I mean, that to me is just, it's tough to see, pushing people in the subway tracks, attacking women, children, elders, people who can't fight back, or 12 people on one person. I mean, wow. I mean, to the point where they had to rob him and even take his underwear. I mean, when you hear so much of this in the news cycle, it's one, you become jaded because it happens so much. You just don't care as long as it's not happening to you or anyone else you love. Or two, you just say, fuck it, man. I fucking hate people.
Yeah.
I fucking hate people.
You're just so tired, man. You're just so tired of hearing all this. And
you're
just so scared at the same time,
But I don't think that's a true reflection of a community, right? Because we hear these stories because, people want the best soundbite. So obviously, and they want the viewership. So they're gonna report on these things, and not really report on the things that the community is doing to help each other. You know, like you said before, there are organizations, there are people helping each other, creating food drives, you know, delivering food to the elderly, and all these things. These things should be the driving force that we need to hear as young individuals, so that we are inspired to do things to help others, right? Not this shit. Yeah, we should be aware. We should be focused on like protecting our elderly, our mothers, our fathers, because I mean, we all have skin in the game. My parents still live down here, right, in this community, and our families do. So we have to be vigilant, you know, but we also have to fight, you know, to keep that humanity, because when we come out of this, are we gonna be changed as people, where we're gonna be so jaded that, you know, considering like fuck everyone?
Yeah.
No, I don't want to come out like
so.
that.
I mean, not us. I don't think like there's
yeah.
people like, I think what we see outside is, and we do see a lot of good though. You're right. Those food drives, and you know, the line is down the block, 2 blocks, and they're still willing to, you know, help out. And it was like a everyday type of thing. And that was very nice to see. And we see a lot of, especially even in my industry, in the taxi industry. That's why I've been working with Taxi Workers Alliance, and because they care, you know, they care, and they see the defeat in these drivers' eyes, and you know, and I was like, hey, look, I gotta try to help too, you know, if I can, any way I can.
Right.
And yeah, same thing with Chinatown. I do feel like I try to eat in Chinatown when we can, but we also, you know, a lot of times we eat at home, we cook, and we try to save money. But anytime I'm in Chinatown, like I try to tip. And
Same here. We all do that.
Yeah.
And I love that we get to highlight and see the good part of humanity, but we cannot choose just to look at those things as if the problems do not exist. We cannot bury our heads in the sand. At some point, we have to acknowledge that this is a problem. Because if we keep saying it'll be okay, one day that problem is going to be at your doorstep. So we have to figure out as a community how to stop it together, either with police, with the city officials. We need to get together and figure it out, because right now, there is a major problem in New York City with crime.
Right.
It's a major problem. Women are getting raped, thrown in the subway tracks, assaulted, and it's alarming at at the frequency that this is occurring. And it cannot keep continuing this way. It can't, because if we don't do something about this to curb this rising crime rate, it's only going to get worse, and it's going to attract other actors like it. So it's a election season coming up for New York City. Make sure you press your city council or your mayor, and you understand what they are trying to go for. Don't go for them just because they're a brand name. Figure out what they stand for. Really, really listen to them. And if what they addresses your views, and then look at their track record if they have one, right? To see if they do fight for the small guy, if they do fight for people like you within your community. Don't just vote for them because the herd is voting for them, and don't just vote for them because they're more famous than someone else. Really dig into their politics. Really dig into their character and integrity. Because New York City desperately, now more than ever, moving into the future, needs a good forward path.
I think a progressive path as well too. You know, we see, you know, like Andrew Yang, and we see Chris Martin, right? Marte, is it?
Chris Marte, he is running for City Council.
City
1.
Council. I'm sorry, District 1. You're right. And we see like what's his face? Scott Stringer. Sorry, I'm just blanking right now. And you know, we see these people that, and you know, Scott Stringer might fight for me, you know, and then it might not but you know, I'm a Andrew Yang fan, but I just want to see if Scott Stringer will actually hold up to it. And I think I don't know. We talk to his office all the time, and you know, for me, I don't know who it's too early to know who I'm voting for, because I still don't know all of the politics. I'm not saying I'm gonna just because he.
And that's smart.
Yeah,
I mean, if you made up your mind now already,
that's
then
ridiculous.
You haven't heard the rest of the playing field.
It's so long. You know, it's not until like, what is it, September or November is the actual election.
November is
but
the
September is
primary.
Primaries in September, right?
I believe it's in June.
I'm sorry, it's in June. That's right. Yeah.
So, have you had the inclination or the idea to kind of bring this issue up with like the mayor candidates, right? I know you've been working with Scott Stringer, who's running for mayor, but how about the other candidates as well, like Andrew Yang?
I mean, for us, we've been it's already pretty popular issue. We had articles of people like, the 50 most important questions for New York City, and our issue was one of them. You know, what are you going to do for the taxi medallion owners and the taxi crisis? And for us, a lot of people. I want to meet as many people as I can, just to let them know what's going on, and see the faces. You know, we bring the drivers that are hurting from this. You know, these are people that have to go to work and then go home thinking like, man, I didn't make enough today, and I worked 12 hours.
I hate that.
And you're talking about, and they just feel like a loser to their family. Where at one point they felt like they were winning, and that was just basically they would take. The carpet was taken from under their feet, and it's so, when you see that time after time again, you're like, oh, something has to be done. And it's with, the mayor could help. And this is very low cost to the city. All he has to do is really just listen. You know what I mean?
Do you think that they may perhaps want to eradicate yellow cabs?
I don't know. I mean, if they did, then they should just say it, And so,
but why would they say that? I mean, that'll make them look bad.
Right, exactly. But they should at least tell them, hey, look, it's
because let's just.
It doesn't make sense to me though.
Let's just get
I'll let you know.
There are interested parties though. There are interested parties, and we know that they want to keep the yellow taxi. Okay. We've spoken to a lot of councilmen and women,
because you guys are on the brink of total collapse.
Yeah, you're talking about
and if someone is literally on its last lifeline and you don't
address it,
help them, I mean, that's it.
Essentially,
it's a wrap.
The industry needs a bailout. Basically.
Yeah.
So if they're not bailing them out and they're not helping them, and they keep blowing them off, kicking the can down the street, then I'm going, wait, you playing me, or do you want us to die out? Wait, you're accepting lobbying money from the group that's causing this whole industry to be disrupted, and not wanting us to be able to compete with them. Well, as a business owner, if you're looking at the other side, wouldn't you want to have one less competitor to worry about?
And these guys, the city was banking off of these medallion sales. And they're talking about, having like their fiscal year is coming up, and the reports and saying like, we're in debt. You think about, I wonder where you could get money from.
Exactly. I mean, that was one of my points to point out as well. If the city gets so much money from the taxis that are charging fees, paying for the MTA, and if the taxi industry disappears, where are you going to get this money? It seems like a ripple effect. It's going to affect other industries.
Can't they push it off to the Uber and Lyft drivers, the other companies?
Will these companies agree to that? That's the thing.
If the yellow cabs are eradicated,
they actually do pay. But see, that's the thing.
Look, if you keep giving me money, and you're saying fuck Augie somehow, and I'm going, well, Augie ain't doing shit for me. Whoa, actually, he's generating tax revenue.
Right. Yeah.
And you're going, we'll
cover that.
I got you, buddy. I'll cover that, and then I'm gonna throw some more honey on top.
Is that
right?
What's happening?
And if I'm not getting emotional about this, let's say I'm a ruthless, psychotic businessman, and I'm going, shit, I'm just calculating my numbers, and I'm going, well, your proposal makes a lot of sense to me and my city. You know what? Yeah, let these guys just go off on their own. I just won't do anything to help them. I won't harm them, but I won't do anything to help them. And there's no way they compete with you, so let them go off on their own. And if they're ride sharing or getting the app, they're too late, right? And like you said, it's not user friendly. So Screw that. They're underwater on their loan. Leave them alone. Let it happen. And you, my friend, will eventually take over the yellow cab industry.
Yeah.
Especially when you come with your driverless vehicle. See,
It's a possibility, man.
Boom. Yo, these people don't.
So they have the 5-year plan.
Let me tell you, these people don't plan for today.
Yeah.
What they planned for today was 5 years ago, bro. What their plan? They already know or have an idea what they're gonna do. Their mission in terms of revenue guidance. They know how much and how far they want to scale this already. They're already 5 or 10 years ahead. They have the plans in place. Now they're just moving all the pieces and putting it together, and they got the people lined up already. Now it's just just letting time pass and actually pushing the pieces forward. You know the way these corporations move. They're extremely organized, extremely intelligent, and extremely thoughtful.
And powerful.
Now, the only thing that could be unaccounted for if the people push back, if enough people push back, then politicians will have to go, whoa, I can't ignore my people.
Your constituents,
so
yeah.
You're lobbying. Now you have to back off a little bit. You may not be able to get everything you want. I'll give you some, but you're not going to get all because I have to give some for Augie.
Yeah. And trust me, I've seen that. We went into offices of councilmen and councilwomen. I'm not going to name who, but they've asked like, so maybe if you get, $25 from each of your member of your union, then maybe, and then donate it to me, then we have something to talk about. And it's and it's not like
Isn't
I didn't
that
know
like a
that
backwards extortion?
I know it's
bribing kind of.
It's happened. It's happened. And
where's that line between lobbying, bribing, and extortion?
Exactly. There is none. It's all blurred, right? So they, at this point, like on camera, they're concerned for us. They love to be like, what we feel for you guys. They even set up a task force talking about recommendations, what the city should do. This was before the pandemic and early 2020.
That's fine and dandy, but it doesn't hit your bottom line.
Yeah, right. What we need and focus on is debt forgiveness. It's the only way we can survive.
That's
the
it.
only way. And then so a lot of these owner drivers will not just disappear. And then what are they gonna do, man? Like, what are they gonna be able to do at their age?
It's that, or can yellow cabs ever compete with Uber and Lyft's business model? Can you guys catch up? Can there be like some type of app or you guys upgrade your vehicle somehow?
Like I said, I've worked for that app. It's hard when the TLC regulates us and they're not trying to help us. We don't, we need to let them know, like, look, we should have one universal app, right? And not
would make
confuse
things
people. We have three.
exactly.
We have three.
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
If I had to go to 3 different apps for one Uber, that would piss me off.
Exactly. It just doesn't make sense. And they just feel like, oh, we're gonna allow this to happen and see what happens. And they're not really doing the legwork and trying to really try to correct this problem. And they're saying they're helping us out. Then they're saying that like, oh yeah, we spoke with the lenders and they're offering up to they have negated $70 million off of the Medallion owners debt. And then it's not without a cost. They never mentioned that these drivers have to pay $25,000 to bring down the principal to $300,000. And not only that, they're not going to be able to pay for that $300,000. And they're going to be in the same shoe. They're going to be in the same shoes 6 months from now, a year from now.
I mean, this is crazy. I had no idea that. I mean, I knew that yellow cabs were deeply impacted, but I just didn't know the extent of the political involvement. I had no idea of the extent of corporations' involvement and all the lobbying that took place behind the scenes. It is just crazy to me.
Yeah, there's so much more too. And it's like during this time, like COVID, these guys are asking, hey, where are the food banks? They're asking on, we belong to a lot of like chat rooms on WhatsApp. Hey, where are the food banks? Is there any way I could get online, and is there going to be enough food? We have really like food. We took a survey. I mean, it's known that during the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of these drivers, 82% of them don't have more than 1 month's worth of food in their home, right? And so,
oh my gosh,
and you're talking about food scarcity. They're not they're barely surviving even before. They're not even surviving before the pandemic. They were going out borrowing money so they could keep on this dream of owning.
A lot of these people have kids,
they have
families,
kids, exactly,
a mortgage, just like the rest of us.
Yeah, they're just not surviving.
Something needs to be done.
They have to. I don't see any way around it, and that's why we're fighting so hard. And then Tuesday we're gonna talk to TLC and talk to them about that.
Is there a way people can, I guess, help or learn more about this?
Absolutely. Well, the organization that I've been working with is New York Taxi Workers Alliance. So you could find them at nytwa.org. And also you could, if you're at Twitter, you could tweet the mayor. You could call 311 and talk about this issue. There's just, for us, we want New Yorkers to think that they have a way to help and and tell people about what's going on with the yellow taxi industry. I'm not saying the yellow taxi industry is not without its faults. I'm here to try to change that too. Look, we have a terrible PR problem, and we need to eradicate that. And we have to. And I think fundamentally, when the foundation of yellow taxi, we have to hit it through the schools, teaching them, hey, look, be proud of what you do. I think a lot of these guys are just driving crazy. Our reputation is reckless driving, rude drivers, and basically dirty cabs. There's so many things in the industry. Like a lot of the dirty cabs are from the garages because they just don't care, because they were just leasing it out to these guys who were paying high leasing rates. You're talking about $800 a week, but during the time when it was like the peak of yellow taxi, they were making enough, for themselves. But look, you're paying $800 a week to lease out this vehicle that's dirty. Why would the driver feel like the need to go and try to get it cleaned? And they're just trying to make as much as they can.
Right.
It became like this really bad system.
Oh, so the owner operators and the cabs are coming from, I guess, the garages are being leased out. They're totally separate.
Totally separate. And these guys, and I've seen,
I didn't know that.
They take care of their cars.
Yeah, I've been in cabs where the seats were shredded. You could see the foam coming out.
It's
and
bad.
The smell, the stench, or
that's what the TLC
or they refuse to turn on the air conditioning, and it was like dead of summer, and they'll just roll down the windows.
Crazy.
And if they did turn on the AC, you could tell that the AC wasn't on, like at my request, and you could tell that the AC wasn't on for a while, and that dust and that smell was just gross. And I'm like, you know what? No, that's fine to leave it off.
Right.
I'll roll down the damn windows.
Yeah. And there's like, there's just so many things that we can do. TLC should be the one who, oversees all this, right? See the cars, really look at the garages, because they don't care. Yeah. These garages, they just want to try to get as much money as they can.
Right.
And that became like a problem. And the switching, there's a lot of people that, when they deny them going to Brooklyn and all that, it might be during the peak times, because that's when they switch off, right? So they have to drive back to Queens. And if you're going to Brooklyn, they get a penalty if they come back late.
Right.
So it became just a backwards, it's such a weird way that the yellow taxi was working. And so I want you to know that there are drivers like, I have to take care of my car. Of course it's mine. Like I want my business to be nice and clean. And I hate it. I mean, I love it when passengers come in and say, oh, clean cab. But I'm just like, how often do you get in dirty cabs? And for them to say something like that. Yeah. And I talk to them about, I'd be like, I'm so sorry. Like I wish that, but mainly those cabs are I'm telling you, it's from garages, and they just don't.
There should be some oversight, and there should be fees. I mean, because they give you guys a bad name. The good drivers like you, Medallion owners like you. I know there are several others that have a lot of pride and just a sense of cleanliness when it comes to their cab. They want people to feel welcomed and happy with that experience. And that's why Uber and Lyft, they came in, and it was for me when I first came to New York City, and I sat in one of those, I was like, whoa, this is different. I'm tall, number one, there's more legroom, and it was cleaner.
Get a bottle of water. It's clean.
They gave
right.
me in the beginning they were so nice. They would get candies.
They would wear suits. They would wear suits.
Yeah.
You know, it became like kind of like a chauffeur anytime you wanted to call. And they advertise it as that. You know,
right. And the pricing up front is huge.
Yeah, of course it is, because you know how much you're gonna pay.
Yeah.
And then with our for us, we knew that the meter. I knew that the meter is very anxiety driven, right? It jumps.
Yeah.
Anytime you sit at a red light, you jump and you're just like you just think about it. And I just think that there should be a way where we can. It's so easy, right? Like how far is it? How long it's gonna take? You already be able to calculate that. And you know the company I've been working with, we have that. Right. It's upfront pricing, and we have that. But yet it's hard to take off because these drivers are. One, they're just like apps. They're older, some of them,
right?
Or they just don't get enough requests because we don't have enough money to promote it enough. So there's the people of New York can request and try to ask and stuff like that.
I remember when yellow cabs were fighting against having credit card payments settled in their vehicles.
Yeah,
you know, and look. You have to change with the times if you want your business to thrive.
That's another thing. Yeah.
You have to change with time.
Yeah,
you have to.
Yeah, and I admit that. Like, you know, of course we do, and I want to fix that.
Yeah.
We have to really get with it right now. We're not attracting drivers, and we're definitely not attracting passengers. Yeah. You know, so there's a lot of mutual interest between city agencies and city officials that want to keep us around. You know, but they're like, you guys have to solve it, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. No, we do, but we need TLC's help. They're ignoring us. I have these ideas, and they're not even trying to listen to me
because they're not looking for a solution.
They're not looking for solutions, and I think that there's so many things that they can do. They end up just like really penalizing these drivers. What's the number one thing that you know? So what the TLC does is it makes it so easy for you to report a driver, like whether or not they're just not they're not nice, they're driving reckless, or they almost hit you or something like that. It's just so easy. You call 311, you get their medallion number. Like if I cut off somebody, I'm already at fault. There's no way I'm winning that case, even though unless I have a dash cam and I'm trying to explain. But that person could say anything about me, and I would get. They would reprimand me.
They would?
There would be no court because you could try to fight the hearing, but from what I heard, I've never been in that situation. You basically get you just like don't even worth it. Just pay the lawyer to try to help you out as much as you can, but you got reprimanded. Like don't do it. You know, it's crazy.
Really? Because I heard rumors the other way. I heard that if you get hit or something happens or a cab driver crashes into your car or anything, good luck dealing with them because they have like really good advocates or lawyers or insurance policies, and it makes it almost impossible for you to win a case against them.
Oh, I don't know about that because
I heard it like the opposite way from several.
I mean, no, I'm talking
folks.
about like if the TLC reprimands me, but for them to be able to get I pay like. Every month is like for liability insurance, it's like $350.
And you pay the TLC for that?
No, they have there's like a monopoly between. I say it's like a duopoly between two insurance companies that basically they're gonna rate. Check this out. They're gonna raise the price, the premium to 10% during the time when
during the pandemic.
Of course,
why
would they're willing to do something like that? Like they don't care.
It's so insane.
Yeah.
I mean, for me personally,
it sounds like they're trying to get rid of the yellow cab.
Yeah, right? No, exactly.
Everything is pointing towards that.
That's what I'm saying.
It just makes no sense. You would think that you're just trying to help these struggling guys.
It would be weird the day that we look at. It would be very weird that day we look at New York City and there's no more yellow cabs. Yeah. That's very hard to picture.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. But I mean, I'm gonna keep fighting for it. I think these guys deserve someone, and I'm so proud of them. Not only that we go on these Zoom calls, we are just we'll talk with each other, try to figure out, hey, look, if these are men and women that are willing to sacrifice their time and their day to come out and voice themselves. And during a time when it's just so hard and pandemic, you're scared to come out, but they're shutting down bridges. They're really going to lobbies of the banks, and we're going to Gracie's mansion, and we're ready. We have been getting organized, and it really does help when we're getting more and more people listening to us.
Well, I wish you guys luck. I do want to end on a light note. Do you have any stories of any interesting stories, or what's the most interesting story you had? Yeah.
Honestly, I'm a day driver. It's never that interesting. But I just, I got like James Corden in my cab. I got Kaidi Tong.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was nervous, but I'm more of like, I know it sounds crazy, but I'm a huge like dog lover. Me and my fiance is a huge dog lover. So I would take pictures of the dogs that are in my cab all the time. I have like so many, and that's about it. Nothing crazy.
Nothing crazy. So people are usually very normal.
They're going to work. You're not the night partying guy. Like I'd hate working at night. I don't know how that.
You don't want to throw up in your cab,
right? Yeah, my night guy tells me stories. And I guess I've had one where I picked up somebody that had like a hospital, band.
Where you escaped the hospital?
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. So he was not even from here. I had to drive him to Pennsylvania. No, not the Pennsylvania.
If I see someone in a hospital gown,
it's not a gown, but he had
on their band, and they're like, drive me to Pennsylvania. I was like,
yo, it's an escaped convict or something.
Right, yeah.
Hey, I hear Uber's fantastic.
Yeah. You should just use that, please. Don't bother me. It's just this guy that just got out of jail. But I saw his tag right. I was like, damn, I should, please just.
Like a psych ward? Like, holy
shit. I don't know. Like something must have happened. So he explained that him and his girlfriend got into like an argument and started like fighting. He got arrested by cops, right? And so, but he was like heavily, he smelled like alcohol. So basically he was just drinking all night. Yeah. And I had to just drive him, and dude had to puke like 3 times on the way to his hotel.
Oh, so he's hungover.
Yeah. And he was in jail. So it must not be easy to sleep. You know what I mean? And so I picked him up, and I just felt bad. I was like, "Here, take this bottle of water." I didn't even open it. I have a bottle of water. I was like, "Here, take this whole thing. That's all yours," and whatever it is. And I just dropped him off in his hotel. I said, "Hey, man, good luck."
Because that's, I thought about that. I'm like, I would be pretty nervous if I was a cab driver picking up strangers and I get one crazy dude.
I mean, we've got.
there is a percentage. There's got to be at least like 0.1%.
Oh yeah. I mean,
just weirdos.
I just forget about it. I just kind of, because you have so many passengers.
It's so traumatic, and you blocked it out.
I do. I just don't even think about it. There's like so many passengers per day. Not now, but like back then you get 20 rides, 30 rides a day, and. You just do as much as you can. I have great conversations, though. I could tell you that much, because they asking how business is, and we talk about like assortment of things, and that's one of the things I take from driving, and I've always loved like talking to people, meeting them, their views. I've had like Trump supporters. I've had
interesting conversations.
Very interesting, by the way. And it's they're talking about conspiracies and talking about even 5G.
Dude, you're having a whole podcast in your cab.
Yeah. No, exactly. And it's interesting. It is. You just see how they are, but these. Mainly people are just very sweet and super nice. And that's one thing if anybody takes from this podcast is that New Yorkers, they're mainly just very nice, and they don't want to see people struggle. They want to help, but they don't know how.
Yeah.
I think that's it. And I think it's,
I agree with you there.
Yeah.
These are the current conversations you're having right now.
Wow. Because everybody's struggling right now.
Yeah.
And especially so I see them, and they're just they're like, oh, I feel for you. They're not like, oh, you guys deserve it. They're like, oh, I'm rooting for you.
Yeah. How can you not? How can you not?
And that's when you visit the site.
Right. Yeah.
Taxi Alliance.
Right. You could
help us out.
Tweet the mayor. Call 311. Really tell them that we're all struggling. I know that. But we were struggling before this, and we were trying to get the mayor on board. I get it, and I hope we all survive through all this. But we'll see. Maybe I'll come back again.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Anytime, Augie, just let us know. Thanks for coming on, and we'll give us those links. We'll share it down in the descriptions for everyone listening or watching. They can check it out, and if they want to follow up and support you guys.
There's also one more thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we also work with the sister I guess like it's called Community for Change. These nonprofits that are trying to really help. And there's this campaign called investinOurNewYork.com. And it's a great way to really help people that are struggling out there, and I hope that you know, people go on and try to help other people.
That's beautiful.
That's great.
Augie.
Yeah,
That's great.
that's a wrap.
I think it's a wrap, man.
It's a wrap. It's great.
It's a wrap.
You know, thank you for sharing your story.
I appreciate
And
it.
it's a New York story. And I think when you said that a lot of people are struggling and what we can do to help, we definitely should and be able to. If
Right.
We, you know, we have 2 hands, 2 feet. We do a lot.
Thank
Yeah.
you for giving me a platform to talk about this in depth, especially, you know, because I don't, I rarely get to talk about that. There's always these things are usually just like focused on other, you know, just one thing. But I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on and you know, really going into depth on this and sharing all the details. And I know it's not easy for you guys, but you're continuing the good fight. And yeah, we're rooting for you guys, man. I mean, New York City and yellow cabs, I can't see New York City without a freaking cab. You know, yellow cab is just part of what New York is.
Yeah. Well, let's see what the city wants to do, you know.
We'll see. Anyway, Augie, love you, bro.
Love you, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. No,
Yeah.
brother. Thank you guys.
There's Lucky Boys.
We out.